Can having too many units hurt you?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Cal Poly, well, CSU specific, and too many units hurt you. Not for admissions purposes. In the UC, oh my gosh, this gets so complicated, but I'm going to go way into too much. Okay, let me say, too many units from a California community college. Can it hurt you for, from a community college for admissions purposes? No. For CSU and UC, no. Can it hurt you for graduation? No, it's just you've been here a long time, and you know, I guess you don't want to generate a whole lot of units, but sometimes you can have them. STEM majors generally have a lot of units. Where it can hurt you is it's hurting my students on the priority registration. I don't know if that's hit Cabrillo yet, but priority registration is starting to really hurt my students. Where it can hurt you is in financial aid. Sometimes if you have too many units, it can cut you off of financial aid. But there are appeal processes, but you do want to try and be as efficient as possible with your unit taking. Where students get into trouble is if they've attended other four-year universities and they've completed 20 or more semester units, and then they come to a community college and they're trying to get into a UC, that can cause some roadblocks. Okay.
Doesn't it change when you go to another school though? Because I've heard
financial aid, or what changes?
The financial aid, because you have so many required for each school. So even though, like, I had to appeal, but I'm good, you know, to this semester, next, that's all I need.
Right.
But when I go to Cal Poly, or when I
where you don't think positively,
yeah. Or San Jose, whichever, then I'll be starting fresh with credits there. So is that true based on your knowledge?
In theory, that is what's supposed to happen, yes. Okay. Yeah, it's supposed to be that the time clock starts all over again in financial aid. There's been a lot of laws and regulations coming down and changes over the last 5 years with financial aid. In fact, I don't know how much you guys know about what's going to be happening with BOG, but BOG's now going to have a GPA requirement. It's going to have a time limitation. That's going to be starting really soon. You know, there's been so many different changes of all of that every campus interprets them slightly different. So it's an internal campus policy. But it's my understanding that's the case at Cal Poly. That's also been my experience with my students. So.
I'm going to interject actually real quick. I know a few of you still have questions and they're important. But 2 items. I'm going to have the sign-in sheet on the back corner there if you haven't already signed in. And then I also wanted to give Christine, since technically it ends at 1 o'clock, just permission to leave if you need
I'm
to.
okay. I'm all right. I just have to leave by 2.
As long as you are willing to stay.
Yeah, I'm willing to stay and entertain questions. No problem.
But now might be a good time if any of you have to go to another class or anything to kind of just break the bubble.
We should thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. It's helpful. You guys can help your peers too, because that's the most important thing.
So if you are moving, just kind of keep your, voice movements down so that we can hear questions.
How does Cal Poly feel and treat students with 504 plans or disabilities?
Okay, that's a good question. So you saw that it wasn't on any of the readings, right? It's not select, the readings don't take into consideration any of that. So given that you get there, that you're selected, then you have all the support services that the law requires at Cal Poly. For the admissions process, this is what I would encourage, is that if you are not selected and you've applied a couple of times, like say 2 times, you write a letter of appeal explaining your circumstances and have them address that on a case-by-case scenario. But you will need to show that you've attempted the normal admissions process a couple of times.
All right, and also, if you were to do that, could you then include, I have a disability, I've done these classes, I've done all right, and I've also done all of this extracurricular non-coursework related stuff.
Yeah, so that's when the subjectivity comes into place, is through the appeal process with extenuating circumstances and extra knowledge that's not necessarily represented on the application. But again, they'll make you want to attempt a couple of times and show that you haven't been successful a couple of times.
And so that's a year or two worth of attempts.
A year or two is reasonable, and it's case by case.
So